thank you guys for joining me in the training. We knock out a lot of information. I do get communication from the provider agency that I am a member of, and they give me communication. There's going to be slots coming out for individuals on the waiting list. I know you guys are all on the waiting list. You may, if you want to check with Dallas MetroCare, Tarrant County, or whoever your LIDA is. Everyone know what a LIDA is? Your county representative. Check with them and they can kind of fill you in as far as where you stand on that waiting list. And they will be approaching you and they should be checking in with you every year, but I'm not too sure that's happening. Just to make sure that you're still living in the county, to make sure your address didn't change, your point of contacts, stuff like that. But check in with them. Feel free to check in with them to see where you stand on the waiting list. Some of them are very skeptical on giving that information out. They should still give you some type of guidance as far as where you stand on the waiting list. As many of you know, it's about a 15-year waiting list. Most of you probably know how long you've been on it. Every 2 years, they do a slot allocation of how many slots are going to come out in the biennium. And then the LIDAs are supposed to process those slots and approach people and let them know they're up for their HCS slot. If you have any questions, I'm an HCS provider too. That's going to be the second part. You're going to, coming in for lunch, will be HCS clients of mine, HCS attendants, host home providers. So, but if you have any questions about the types of waivers that you may be offered, there's Texas Home Living, there's class, and there's HCS that more than likely you may be offered in the future. But just always keep in mind you have the ability and capability to be asking those questions from your county representative, your service coordinator. Where do I stand in the waiting list? And that'll give you kind of a feel of how much longer you may need to wait. I did have one phone call out of the blue a couple years ago of someone that didn't even know they're on the waiting list, but they were just inquiring about services. They're fortunate enough, within a month, their slot was up for their daughter, and they had no idea they're on the waiting list. So that does happen. You can always check to see where you're at, once again, on that by calling your service coordinator, your LIDA, and asking about that. Any questions about that? All right, let's get started. This is basically a recap of last year's information that we had given you. This time we got a PowerPoint. So there's not going to be any handouts as far as that. If you do want a copy of this PowerPoint, we can email it to you. But it's basically a copycat of the information that we had you sign off on, the policy and procedures, and just updates of what's happened from a year ago to now. So let's start off with, there's our agenda. Here, okay, timekeeping procedures. We discussed this last year, and I just want to reiterate this about that. We do not need to make up hours like we did in the previous year. If you forget to clock in or clock out, or if you missed your shift for whatever reason it is, if you forgot to clock in and clock out, we just need to verify you worked that shift. So in the past it was, hey, I forgot to clock in and clock out. How can I make up those hours? Because we weren't able to bill it. We are able to bill it. We just need to verify that you actually worked your shift. When you clocked in, you clocked out. That still is going to continue. We saw a lot of your variance lower because of that, which is good. So it seems to be working. Exceptions will be discussed. That's one of the exceptions. If you're going to be traveling out of state, if you have time to make it up, so we got to work within a work week, Saturday through Sunday. So say you're going to be out of state until Wednesday and you're unable to clock in and clock out. You can make up that time from Wednesday to Saturday. All you have to do is let us know you're doing that, because we have to manipulate your schedule to allow auto verification to happen. So if that's the case, that you just let us know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to be out of state. I want to make up these hours. I'm not going to be able to clock in and clock out because I'm not going to be in state. So you'll call Gary or text him or send an email and say, these are the hours I want to make up. I'm going to lose 20 hours. I'm going to make them up from Wednesday to Saturday. And this is the time frame I want to make them up. So we put that in your system as your schedule, a temporary schedule for that work week. And then you just clock in and out whatever times that you give us, okay? So if you were out on vacation for a whole week, that work week, unfortunately, there would be no way to make up those hours. So if you have any, if you want to leave on a Wednesday, come back on a Wednesday, you have ample opportunity to make up those hours in the first week and the second week. But if you go on that whole work week, there's no way we can make up those hours. So those are the exceptions. All right, we're going to recap some of the things we went over last year. The phone number, if you're not getting a response from that phone number, call me and I'll make sure that we get it fixed. So there should be a courtesy response coming back from you saying, hey, I got it. If you do an email, if you email info@iCare, that's still going to the same person who has that phone. His name's Gary. If you email and CC me, I'm going to assure that gets done. Email, if you know your hours and it's going to be like on Monday, I'm going to want to work these hours and on this day, I'm going to work these hours. If it's going to be something that's going to be very detailed, probably an email would work better than a text.
But if we miss a check-in and then we put down actual hours, that can come to you by text.
Yes. So say you're supposed to work today and you forgot to clock in and out, or you forgot to clock in. Yeah. Remember the 5-minute rule that I always try the rule of thumb? Come back 5 minutes later and see if that system took it, see if the app took it. If you see that it did not take it, then clock in at that point in time. Okay, and then you'll just clock out 5 minutes later than you would have normally clocked out to make sure you get your hours. Okay, but if for some reason you notice and you're already into your shift and you notice it didn't either take or you just forgot to clock in and out, then
that's what it is. You go to check out at night,
right, and then you notice that, yeah, you go to clock out and you notice that the clock in never happened. Then you just text that number and say, I worked. I wasn't able to clock in and out accurately. I worked from this time to this time today.
Okay, and we don't necessarily have to get a response back.
I would hope that you are getting a response. You should.
Sometimes not, and that's why.
If you don't get a response back and if you see that your hours are not showing, which I don't think we've had an issue with, he is got it written down and he is doing it, but a courtesy response, yes, would be nice.
Okay.
Would be nice. So I would have to let him know, please acknowledge that you're getting this communication. Okay, so he is acknowledging that. That's the last thing I want to do is have someone call me on payday and say, hey, I didn't get paid the hours I worked. I hate that. That's a pet peeve of mine, because we all want to make sure that you guys get paid for the hours you worked. So a courtesy would be say, hey, he got it. I'm okay. So yeah, so I'm going to basically let him know that needs to start happening. All right, so back to this. Hospitalizations is the main one, and this has been an issue previously, not so much now. If the individual you are caring for is in the hospital and is admitted and stays overnight, I think I said this the wrong way last year, but if they sleep in that bed that night, in the hospital that night, then that day is unbillable. So say today they go to the hospital, they go to the ER, they're admitted and they sleep today, overnight in the hospital, then today would be, your clock in and clock out today would not be able to count. So if they wake up and they get discharged, the day they get discharged, you can clock in and clock out on that day. That makes sense? All right, if they're incarcerated, which never happens, you can't bill. If they're out of state, we just touched base on that. You won't be able to clock in and clock out if you're out of state. Auto verification, this still hasn't changed. 80% auto verification is what the state wants you to aim for. Remember, the state has the CFC program, attendant care program, is attendant care across the board, the state. Most CFC Star Plus is what I call this program, is the only program, and it just started effective for HCS, where you can live in the same home as the person you're caring for. All other programs, you cannot live in the same home. So therefore, the way the state envisions this is that you're an attendant, you live in a different home, and you're coming into your client's home to provide services. So if the client says, I need an attendant from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., and that's the attendant's giving me the schedule. Just picture that. The attendant's giving me the schedule. Really, you guys are, as the caretakers, because you live in the same home. But picture if it's the attendant giving me the schedule, and then I'm giving you the schedule to when you have to work. And if the attendant expects you there at 4, but you forget to clock in at 4 and you clock in at 5, that makes it a manual verification. It's no longer an auto verification. If you get there at 4 and you clock in at 4, and that's the schedule that the attendant or the client had given me, then that's going to be an auto verification if you clock out at the same time you're supposed to at 8 o'clock. That's an auto verification. The system automatically knows you're working your schedule, and it's an auto verification. That it will move you from working to worked, basically, in the VISTA program. So Gary does not have to do anything. It just automatically goes, and then it's ready to bill when we do our billing batch. If you miss your time, or you're off on your time, or you're off on your hours, then that becomes a manual verification. What the state wants to assure is that your schedule is worked, and during auto verification, 80% of the time of your schedule that you're auto verifying. Okay, if we have to manual verify for you and it's less than 80%, you continue to not work based on your schedule, and we have to manually go in and adjust that to make sure you get your hours. That's going to be a manual verification. They want to assure that that's not happening, and that's at a minimum. At least 20%. You're able to do 20% manual verification because we know things happen. Yes?
Per month, per week?
For the whole year. What they do is quarterly reports, the state does. They do pull quarterly reports to see this. I know they do that. I have yet to be approached for the state saying we have an issue with this, with the services being provided for this individual. Yet. We're pretty good. We're pretty good at this, especially now that we're able to make up hours the way that we're able to make up hours, because we can put that in there. That would be a manual verification if you forget to clock in and out. That's a manual verification. But we're pretty good at doing auto verifications. I do have a list of, Gary giving me a list of who he's doing a lot of manual verifications for versus who he's not even hardly touching. And those individuals are auto verifying all the time. Everyone understand the difference between a manual verification and an auto verification. We want to aim for auto. So, and if you do know the day before, or anytime in the future, you know that this date you're not going to work your schedule the way that you've given us the schedule, you can always let us know and we can change that for that day so it becomes an auto verification. Back to your vacation question, you're going to make up hours, but usually work from 4 to 8 today, but you're going to work from 4 to 10 today. If we know ahead of time, we can change your schedule temporarily so you can auto verify for making up your hours. Yeah, that's why they give you the 20%. Yeah, so those things happen. Since 2021, they do look at the auto verifications. They have the ability to find me if we see that we're just not providing services adequately. Communication. We kind of just touched on that. The number that we need to use to communication is clocking in and out is the same number that you all should have. The 5001 number is the phone. Texting's probably the best way. If you call and leave a message, there's no guarantee that they're going to be checked right away. But if you text, that phone's right there. Back to work schedule, the importance of making sure that you work all those hours that we have you have assigned. If for some reason your work schedule is going to change and you know that, say you got a different job or whatever the case may be, let us know. We can always change that permanent schedule for you. Annual meetings and authorizations. Since we had our training last year, we were having issues last year with annual meetings being done on time in order to get the authorization. So I have an expert on in the back who makes sure that your annual meeting gets done when it needs to get done. The last thing we want to do is try to ask for an extension. We have improved so much in the last year with this because I was getting calls from service coordinators saying, or we're asking, what happened? Where's our authorization? It started January 1st. We still don't have an authorization. Then they come back, well, we've been trying to get a hold of the family. No one's answering, so on and so forth. And that communication was just lackluster between the service coordinator and getting a hold of the client or the attendant or the guardian to try to set up a meeting so they can have their annual meetings. Usually they're going to be held 3 to 2 months ahead of time before your authorization is expired. And then that gives enough time for it to process. It does go to the utilization through your MCO. Typically, the people that are doing the meetings are the county. Is either Dallas Metro Care or Tarrant County. Anyone else outside of Dallas Metro Care, Tarrant County? Anyone got LifePath? So let me ask a question of those here. When you have your annual meetings, is the MCO service coordinator also attending those annual meetings? I know for Molina, they are showing up. So you say that, so you get 2 service coordinators to do your annual meeting?
Yeah, Landmark does it first, and then Molina and Landmark, we do one together with them. So we do 2 meetings.
Okay. Is that happening for everybody now? I know HCS you have to. Okay. So before it used to before they used to let the counties do it, and then they would just submit the paperwork, and then Molina would come back. Everyone's Molina in here. I don't have anybody anymore that's outside of Molina. I do have contracts with WellPoint. I do have contract with Superior. But everyone that I have right now presently is a Molina client. So it goes through that process. The good thing about it is that we're getting authorizations before the authorizations are due. And that was a struggle the year before. We're getting authorization. We weren't getting authorizations. They were calling. They're saying we can't set up the meeting, or the meeting was delayed, and they'd have to do an extension. That's almost gone away completely because we're communicating and we're getting these meetings done ahead of time when they need to be done. So your authorizations are coming in on time, and we're able to get your schedule in. If there's any schedule changes, if your hours change at all, we'll reach out to you, let you know, hey, you got a couple extra hours, where you want to put it, or hey, they depleted a couple hours, where do you want to change your schedule? So that communication is usually from Gary to you, so he can change the schedule if needed. But we've improved drastically on this in the past year. So communication, contact, and performance, that's what we ask, that's what we need to make sure that we run this smoothly. Everyone gets their hours in, and we stay out of trouble with the state. This is the number that you should be texting and calling if you don't know it. This is it. This is one, and now I'm going to ask that you get a courtesy, yes, I received that. So you all should have this number. There is an email, which I forgot to put in there, but it's info, I-N-F-O, at iCareServices with an S, Inc., INC.com.
Eye care services, just straight out.
iCareServices, one word, INC.com. So especially those emails that are detailed saying, hey, I'm gonna work these hours instead of these hours because I was on vacation or unavailable. You can CC me on that, and I'll assure that information. I will just forward that straight. Did you get this? Yes. Okay. Do you mind responding to let them know you got that? Okay, we're going to go a little off track, but I know this is something that's been coming up since the past year, is looking at services. The basis services and people ineligible, what they're looking at really ineligibility in my mind, in my opinion, is making sure that we're not providing services fraudulently. So if you're ineligible, it's because you are maybe not a citizen of Texas, or you're not a citizen of the United States, whatever that may be. So what we're doing in HCS, and we're going to, you guys might not be when we get to that, is they are doing on-site visits. Marcy, have you had an on-site visit? They're doing on-site visits. Marcy's in HCS. We're arranging on-site visits to make sure that the address that we're billing from is an actual address. It's not a P.O. box, and that someone actually lives there. That's what they're doing to assure that that these people are eligible to receive services. That's what I'm seeing on my front line right now, as far as them looking into any other cases of ineligibility. I'm unaware of right now. But that process has started probably about 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And basically it's them to combat fraud is what they're trying to do. So they have yet to look at this program and say, we're going to do site visits for this program, because you guys are billing from an address, and that address is the address that we have in Vista. So they might come and say, now it's time for us to look at your CFC people that are getting attendant care. And they might start that process. I don't know. But I know in HCS, Texas Home Living, or HCS, they are verifying addresses and that people actually live in them, and that they're actually homes or apartments or residences to provide services in. So, okay. Performance annual variance. So here we get to that. Last year, we were giving increase in pay and reimbursement. We got another one. However, the difference between this and last year's was across the board. Everyone's going to get the 1060. It's 1060, right? Different for you. But HCS got an increase too, Nakia. So everyone's getting a 1060 across the board. So that was what our training was last year. This time they did give an increase again. However, they said it would be an average. That was an average cost that we could do as providers. We can divvy out that increase as we wanted. So being here presently, you will get an increase in your first paycheck in February. What we're looking at, and what I'm going to hand out right now, is your variance. Remember, we talked about variances. We want to see how well you scored within the past year compared to last year. So I'm going to hand out your report cards, basically. Do some of you remember your numbers from last year?
Okay.
No? I don't have last year's with me, but they have improved. And part of the improvement is because we're able just to say, hey, we worked these hours, and we're not going to have to make them up. Because what was happening the year before is that people were making them up, but they still weren't making up the hours that they needed to, or there wasn't enough time in the week to make up those hours. So now that we switched to just let us know whether you worked or not, that has improved your variance. So what we're looking at your increase is your variance versus your auto verification versus manual verification. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at how well you did on your variance and how well you did on your auto verification. That intel is going to give you the amount that we're going to give you as a raise. So you will see that reflective. If you're in here today and you're going to sign off on this training sheet for me to know that you're here, you'll see that reflective on your first check in February. Any questions? Yes.
When the variance, is that just the amount of hours that were different?
Yes, these are the amount
This
of
is not percentage.
yeah. So based on those hours, because you have quite a bit, you fall into that percentage
Okay.
of that. Although this is the amount of hours, where the
Yes.
variance is the amount of hours that you missed within the past year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then the percentage is just looking at, some people have a lot of hours, so they look at that. What percent, those amount of hours, what is that based on your total? Your missed hours based on that, that's going to give you your percentage. So some of you are at 0% because you may have a lot of hours and you still missed just a couple of them, but you still fall under the 0% in accordance to the big picture. Everyone is underneath 10% on their variance. The majority is 5% or lower.
And that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's not bad. That's
I
not.
was trying to figure out, is 5% good or 95%?
Well, I mean, and a better thing to even look at is just the number of hours that you missed.
Yeah.
And then you times that times, those are hours you could have worked. But once again, if you need to make up hours, you have the opportunity to do that as long as you have some time in the week, if you're on vacation or out of state, whatever it may be. Okay? Addresses, updates, W-2 forms. I think I've given everybody the W-2 forms, except for you. I'm going to look into that. That needs W-2 forms that are here. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pass out the CFC training form to verify that you're here. And you will see changes to your pay rate in the very first paycheck in February. So that's just no one's not getting a raise. So. We kind of already went through that. Oh. All right. Well, we're done about 10 minutes early. Feel free. They're setting up out in the back. We're going to move into eventually infection control, which is going to be something for everybody. And then we're going to do abuse, neglect, and exploitation all during the lunch period.